Started in a moment. Okay. Hi, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. My name is Katrina Campos-Arconi-Stubbs, and I'll be your moderator today. Je serai votre modératrice aujourd'hui. Thank you for joining today's media availability to provide an update on the changes to O-Train Line 1. Merci de vous joindre à nous pour cette point de presse afin de faire le point sur les changements à la ligne 1 de l'O-Train. Our media availability is available in French and English. If you would like interpretation, you can click on the interpretation globe icon in the bottom of your menu, and you can choose your selected preferred language. Ce point de presse est disponible en français ou en anglais. Si vous souhaitez bénéficier d'une interprétation audio, cliquez sur l'icône de globe d'interprétation dans le menu du bas, puis sélectionnez la langue de votre choix. Our media availability today will include opening remarks from Troy Charter, Interim General Manager of Transit Services, and Sabrina Pazian, Chief Safety Officer, will be available for questions after, along with Troy. Le point de presse aujourd'hui comprendra des remarques préliminaires de Troy Charter, Directeur général par intérim Service de transport en commun. Sabrina Pazian, Chef de la sécurité, sera disponible pour répondre à vos questions avec Troy. I'll pass things over to Troy now for opening remarks.
Okay, thank you, Katrina. Good afternoon, bon après-midi. Thank you for joining us for today's virtual media availability session to speak about the memo that was recently just issued to Council regarding the reduced capacity for our customers on O-Train Line 1. I would like to start by speaking directly to our customers. I know that this is a new issue, and its impact on our customers is extremely frustrating. While we've seen significant and sustained improvements of the rail system, this is not acceptable. However, as we've stated many times, we will always stand by the safety being paramount, and this is our entire team's focus, our entire team's priority, and that includes our maintainer RTG. Out of an abundance of caution, today's decision to temporarily reduce the number of vehicles available for service was made to ensure that Line 1 service remains safe for our customers as well as our employees. Before I address the impacts to our customers, I want to provide a brief overview of the issue at hand. Rideau Transit Group has notified us that spalling was detected on several cartridge bearing assemblies, or you also hear us refer to them as CBAs. This was identified as part of the ongoing investigation and analysis efforts of the existing cartridge bearing assemblies, the issue that we've talked about at Transit Commission previously. Spalling is caused when the metal surface inside an axle bearing starts to flake off, and it starts to create pits within that metal that can grow over time, which can lead to cracks. And if not addressed and observed, this can result ultimately in a bearing failure. RTG has begun a root cause analysis on this issue. Together with our independent safety consultant, Transportation Research Associates, we have been in discussions with RTG to ensure the ongoing safety and operation of our service. While RTG maintains that the fleet is safe for continued operation, the city has notified RTG that any vehicle with CBAs, cartridge bearing assemblies, over 100,000 kilometers or more of mileage, they are to be temporarily removed from service. We are taking this step while we wait additional information and implementation on new procedures that will allow for a reliable and continued safe service. This additional information and new maintenance processes, combined with bearing replacements, will allow for the number of LRVs available for service to increase and return to our normal and expected service levels. This means that we need to carefully manage our fleet. Trains on Line 1 will continue to operate at approximately the current frequency level. However, to manage our fleet of vehicles, we'll be running a combination of both single and double car trains. Furthermore, this means that during peak periods, trains will continue to operate approximately every 4 to 5 minutes, but it is likely that the single car trains will fill up much faster. Trains may be crowded, and some customers will need to wait for the next train to arrive. Again, we know this is not ideal and does not reflect the level of service that we want to provide to our customers. We are expecting there to be sufficient capacity during the midday and evening service, but again, some customers may have a slightly longer wait. Lines 2 and 4 are not affected and will continue to operate normally. We are sharing this information with our customers through all our channels, including customer alerts, public service announcement, social media updates, as well as on octranspo.com. Our team will be monitoring the system in real time, and where possible, we'll make adjustments. I'd like to remind everyone, our customers especially, that at busy times, please continue to be safe. Stand behind the yellow line at all times. If you don't make it on the first train because it is full, there will be another train in a few minutes. Moving forward, our focus remains on prioritizing safety and completing the necessary due diligence to ensure RTG and its subcontractors are accountable and are working to restore capacity for customers as quickly as possible. As for the next steps, we're going to continue to work with RTG to establish the timelines as well as the maintenance procedures in order to increase the number of trains available for service. We will continue to provide regular as the situation continues to evolve, as we make progress to increase the capacity for our customers. Before I conclude, again, I'd like to thank our customers for their patience, but I understand their frustration, and we're working very, very hard to resolve this issue as quickly as possible. So thank you, merci, and Sabrina and I are happy to take any questions at this time.
Thank you, Troy. I will ask in each agency in alphabetical order to ask one question and one follow-up. Je vais inviter chaque organisme de presse par ordre alphabétique à poser une question et une suivi. First on our list, we have CBC, and I just want to confirm, Emma, will you be asking the questions on behalf of CBC today?
No, it will be Arthur White-Crummy.
Okay. Arthur, we'll start with you.
Hi, thanks so much. Can you hear me just fine?
Yes, I can.
Great.
Yes.
So I just want to get a little bit more sense of the scale of what customers can expect. I don't think it said it in the memo exactly how many cars you're pulling from service. Can you explain how many you expect to pull, how many single car trains you're going to be running compared to double car trains, and what that will mean for capacity? Like, what kind of capacity do you have usually? What is the demand, and what will that be reduced to?
No, that's a good question. That's one of the main reasons why we wanted to, conduct this media availability today and talk to you and talk to our customers. Normally we run 13 double car trains during peak periods. Moving into this temporary situation that we're in right now, we believe that we're going to have a combination of single and double car trains at those peak periods. We want to maintain the frequency of approximately every 4 to 5 minutes, but we anticipate that we'll be running, anywhere between, 4 or 5 single car trains instead of the doubles. But the situation remains fluid. We've advised RTG of this requirement today, and they're going to be making, all efforts to provide as many vehicles as possible. But at the same time, they need to meet our requirements. Is no vehicle is going to be going into service that has more than 100,000 kilometers. So it's hard for me to give you an exact number right now. But our focus is to get as many vehicles in service as possible. But at the same time, we're focused on the safety aspect, and we've directed them no vehicles with more than 100,000 kilometers will go into service.
I also wanted to ask about timelines. I know this is probably still in flux, but do you have a sense on approximately when you'll be able to return to regular service? And do you expect this to remain an ongoing problem? I mean, I would presume that once you're able to replace those cartridge bearing assemblies, we might be able to get back to regular service, but you'll still be replacing them more frequently, right? So will that be an ongoing problem that we can expect to continue to see disruptions in the future? And when might that be resolved?
No, that's a very good question. Thank you for that. If I don't get all the elements of it, please flag me to that. In terms of the vehicles, in terms of the timelines, we want them to focus on that return to service and get as many vehicles back to service as soon as possible. That's our focus. I don't have a more detailed timeline than that because the situation is quite fluid, and there's a number of activities that are ongoing in parallel. There will be focus on replacing the cartridge bearing assemblies, that have that over 100,000 kilometers on them. But at the same time, we're working with them on new maintenance procedures, new opportunities to diagnose these cartridge bearing assemblies that may allow us to keep them in service longer periods of time too. So we're looking at multiple mitigations, multiple fronts but it is something that will need to be managed until we know what the root cause is and we're able to address that root cause.
Thank you. Next is Leah Larocque from CTV.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi, Troy. I just want to go back to the actual issue and spalling. I'm just not sure if a lot of people know exactly what that is.
Yeah.
So could you maybe just explain and kind of as clear as possible what exactly this issue is and what are you seeing on the train?
So the issue that's occurring is within the axle bearing itself, okay? And I think you can appreciate if you look at any sort of vehicle or even bike, you have bearings that allow for an axle or a shaft and wheels to be able to rotate around it, right? So there's lubrication and there's smaller bearings within that, and it's all about allowing a wheel to roll smoothly. And what we're seeing is what R2G has identified is within that bearing itself, they're seeing what they call spalling, which is some chipping away at the metal. And if that metal chips away, two things happen. The bearings don't rotate smoothly, and then you start to get contamination in the grease that's in there that allows the bearing to move freely, and that contamination can result in more degradation of the bearing itself, which then can ultimately lead to a failure. So, it's an important aspect of the vehicles that needs to be addressed.
Thank you. And I just want to say, can you speak to how much of an impact this is going to have on the system in general? If people can't get on a train and they're going to wait for a bus, but we know there aren't enough buses right now to meet demand. So how much of a stress is the system going to be under right now going ahead for an indefinite timeline?
Yeah, so our focus is getting as many vehicles back in service as possible, as quickly as possible. Obviously, as I said, safety is paramount, and I can't stress that enough. But yeah, there will be an impact at those peak times. There's going to be an impact in terms of the capacity, and that's why we're here to talk to our customers about the fact that the platforms will be busier at those key times. They will see a combination of single and double car trains, and some customers may have to wait for a second train. They may not be able to access the first train, and that's not acceptable. I appreciate that our customers will, I think frustrating is maybe putting it mildly. I think our customers will be upset with this, and we recognize and acknowledge that this is not acceptable. We're going to hold our maintainer accountable to rectify the issue as soon as possible and get us back to service. But there will be a capacity impact. But where our focus, our collective focus, is getting as many vehicles back to service as possible, so we can minimize the length of impact.
Suivant, Sébastien Pierrose, Le 3.
In French or in English?
I can probably take it in English, but I've also got our Chief Safety Officer, Sebastian Payson, who can answer in French too.
Okay, I can ask the question in French and you can answer in English, or I can try in English if you want.
It's up to you.
Okay. Could winter condition be a contributing or aggravating factor? What do you think about what
Merci.
happened?
Merci pour la question, mais on pense pas que l'hiver, c'est une des raisons que la situation est ici. Ce n'est pas dépendant sur le météo.
Ok, et la question de follow-up, juste pour clarifier, vous avez bien dit, il n'y a pas encore un temps où le trafic va revenir à la normale selon vous. C'est pas, il n'y a pas encore d'indices qui vous permettent de dire que ça va être ce soir ou demain.
I think you asked, do we think when do we think the capacity will return, or when the service will return to normal?
Yes, my question was, maybe I misunderstood, but could you explain when service will return to normal?
À ce moment, nous savons pas quand le service va retourner à normal, mais tous nos efforts, c'est pour accélérer ça, et on veut retourner notre service normal bientôt que possible.
Merci beaucoup pour votre réponse bilingue.
Merci.
Et suivant, Frédéric Tapin, Radio-Canada.
Bonjour, Monsieur Schauder. Est-ce qu'on peut faire juste quelques chiffres? Je ne sais pas si ça va compter comme une question, mais présentement, combien de trains légers dans le système là, Moi, je pense que j'ai vu sur votre site web 56 trains. Et combien de trains vous avez présentement et combien vous pensez qui sont au-dessus du 100 000 kilomètres?
Euh, on a, nous, je m'excuse. On
Ah,
a
OK.
18, on a 18 trains qu'on peut continuer à utiliser maintenant. Tous les autres trains, ils ont un ou deux ou trois CBA qui sont plus de 100 000 kilomètres, 100,000 kilometers.
Oui.
C'est une
OK.
grande nombre de notre flotte.
Donc, le total de trains que vous avez à votre disposition dans le réseau du train léger, juste le Line 1, c'est 56, right?
Je pense que maintenant, on continue we
En
continue to receive
recevoir.
new trains.
Ouais.
I think we're a little over 60 at this point right now. But
OK.
we always have a number of trains that are in long-term maintenance that are stopped for service, those types of things. So, there's the ongoing maintenance that we need to be prepared for as well, too, in addition to this. So, um, you've got maintenance, just like, just like any sort of vehicle, you've got intervals in which you need to do inspections and certain types of activities. So although you have a much larger, you always need to have spares to manage the ongoing maintenance requirements. And then when this happens, it creates that additional stress.
Okay, but just to make sure that I understand and that my colleagues can understand, I think these numbers are important. If you have about you only have 18 trains that you can use now. All of the others in your total of 60 need to be
Yeah.
that cartridge needs to be replaced.
And well, it needs to be replaced, or we need additional information in terms of ongoing maintenance practices, diagnostic tools, those types of things. To if we know that a large portion of these cartridge bearing assemblies, there's no spalling whatsoever, but we need methods to be able to predict and identify that. So until we start to see those additional processes that they're able to implement and put in place, we're taking a very, very cautious approach in terms of our fleet.
I don't want to run over.
Yeah.
I think that this allows us to understand there. Donc,
Yeah.
merci pour ces chiffres. 18 trains
Thank
is
you
what
for
you
the
can run right
figures.
now. And that's why you need to separate them in two because usually you put them together, right, at peak hours.
Correct. If with double trains, it would only give us 9 trains. So if
That's right.
we want to maintain the service frequency as much as possible, running those trains as frequently as possible. So in order to do that, we're going to split some trains up and run a combination of singles and doubles. And as more trains become available for service, we're going to immediately implement those into service.
And I think I read that in the release, but how different is this issue from the other one that we saw before, where that piece was, unscrewing and then the wheel was falling off? So it's obviously not the same issue, but are they linked?
Too early to tell if they're linked, but we are definitely talking about the same component within the vehicles, that cartridge bearing assembly. So
Wow, okay.
yeah, it's definitely related to the cartridge bearing assembly. What we're seeing with regards to this pitting or this spalling, it's within the bearing itself, whereas in the other issue, it was a failure outside the bearing. So, but that's part of the ongoing analysis. And what's important to note is that RTG and Alstom, they identified this issue through their ongoing efforts in the investigation analysis in with respect to the existing CBA. So this isn't something that was missed. This is part of the ongoing investigation, and they literally are tearing apart these bearings to really understand what's happened with the other issue. And when they were tearing apart these bearings and doing that detailed investigation, that's when they identified this, and that's when they notified us.
Okay, so they're investigating the issue that was that at the derailment, and that's when they found this spalling.
That is correct.
OK. En français, est-ce que je peux vous demander de nous dire
Now,
qu'est-ce que
in
vous
French,
dites
could you tell us
aux
in French,
usagers d'OC
what would you
Transpo
say
qui, là,
to OC Transpo
regardent les
users
autobus qui sont en
who
retard,
see that the
qui, là,
buses are
regardent
all
maintenant à
late
des
and
problèmes de
now
train léger? Qu'est-ce que vous
there's
dites en
problems with
français?
the LRT? What do you have to say to your passengers, your customers?
Des difficultés maintenant avec nos
Well, we're
services.
facing problems with the service currently,
Et au même temps,
but at the same time,
j'apprécie leur patience
I would appreciate their
parce que
patience
toute notre équipe,
because our whole team, our entire team,
toute notre équipe, on veut améliorer
is
notre
is
service
working to
le plus
improve
vite
the
possible.
service as
Et
quickly as
c'est notre
possible.
focus.
This is our
C'est pour
focus
améliorer le service, même si c'est autobus,
to reestablish
même si
or restore
c'est le train.
service,
Ça, c'est
train
notre
and
focus,
bus
c'est pour
service.
améliorer
That's our
le service.
focus to improve the
Mais
service
on sait que c'est
as quickly as possible.
frustrant
We know it's frustrating for users, for riders.
Merci, Fred. Next is Shane Sege from Railfans.
Hi, Troy. Thanks for taking our questions today.
Shane.
The memo distinguishes this as separate from the earlier axle bearing assembly issue, which you answered the Mr. Pépin's question, but both involve bearing-related components. So where does the root cause analysis on the original issue currently stand? What is the timeline for an update? And what does the emergence of another bearing-related defect change for the city's position or leverage with RTG regarding long-term remediation?
Okay. So yeah, as I mentioned, this is a new issue. It's a new the way I've been describing is a new symptom or new failure mode associated with the cartridge bearing assembly. RTG and also they are undertaking their root cause analysis and working on addressing the previous issue with the axle bearing assembly. And as that investigation was ongoing, this is where they identified this spalling issue, which is a new symptom or new failure mode. So that ongoing investigation ongoing. And they're doing the right things in terms of a proper investigation, looking at all elements, finite analysis, looking at the is it a batch issue? They're looking at all those types of things, and this is where this was uncovered. As far as the timeline, I would love to be able to provide a timeline as to when we have ultimate rectification. I don't at this point, but it's the city's collective efforts to ensure that we're holding our contractor accountable to, one, ensure that the vehicles are safe for continued operation, they meet the performance expectations, as well as they're following all their maintenance practices and procedures. So this is an issue that they need to resolve, and we are going to hold them to account to make sure that they do resolve both issues. It's too early to tell if the issues are related. They possibly could be, but I need to let that investigation, let the technical people do the work that they need to do in order to come forward with the proper conclusions and updates that we can then provide.
Great, thank you for that. And my follow-up, commissioning and dynamic testing for Stage 2 East requires a significant number of train sets operating over long periods. With vehicles now being removed for service for the CBA replacement, how will OC Transpo and RTG ensure there are enough trains available to support both safe Line 1 operations and continue the testing for the Orleans extension?
Yeah, so right now, our focus is on the existing line, the existing operation, and returning to normal operation. We have been saying that we were close with the East Extension, but we're not there yet. We're not at starting trial running, so there's no impact to the East Extension and trial running at this time. It's something that's on our radar that we need to be aware of because it is close. Right now, our focus is on dealing with this issue, getting back to normal operation, and putting the right processes in place so that we can increase the fleet and then ultimately be ready for the East Extension. So too early to talk about the East Extension. Right now, our focus is on the current operation.
Great, thank you very much.
Could I get one more question just because it's about safety, if possible? I'm just
Yeah, we can ask a question about safety, and if it applies to Sabrina, then she can jump in.
Thanks so much. I'm just wondering how you settled on the 100,000 kilometer replacement number, because I'm thinking back to the previous issues, and I think you reduced it to 60,000 at one point because of the previous bearing issues. How can we be confident that replacing these cartridges every 100,000 kilometers is going to be sufficient to prevent the derailments, to prevent the breakdowns that we've seen in the past?
Go ahead, Sabrina.
Thank you so much for the question, and I appreciate the question. So I'm going to first start by saying that I want to reiterate to our customers and to everyone, to our staff, that taking transit is safe. We took this step really out of an abundance of caution, and we have our staff and our customers at front of mind. We're always going to take the safest approach and ensure that risk is minimized. We don't take these decisions lightly, but in these situations, safety is not only my priority, it's my sole focus, and it informs every decision we make. We have our independent safety consultant, TRA, that's been working really closely with us. And based on all the data and the information that we have so far from RTG and its subcontractors, We feel confident that this 100-kilometer limitation on the CBAs is sufficient to mitigate the spalling issue specifically. I can't speak to what was decided in the past, but as Troy mentioned, that this is a new issue. So whatever decision was made with regards to the original issue may have had different, technical components. Whereas for the spalling in particular, based on the data that we've seen so far, we're comfortable with this 100-kilometer limitation for the CBAs, and we didn't make that decision in isolation. We have lots of different experts being consulted, and we made that decision with our independent safety consultant, TRA.
Yeah, I think, Arthur, it's two separate issues, right? And to Sabrina's point, really looking at the data that's coming from this specific investigation, what we have right now. RTG and Alstom, they're working on, providing us with updated information, updated data, and that number may change. If they are able to support and provide additional confidence that that number can be extended, or because they have other measures put in place, that's something that we would entertain. But at the end of the day, it's not, where our focus is it's not on what we think or what we believe. Show us the data, show us the information, and we will make informed decisions based on that. So the 100,000 is based on the data specific to this issue.
And just one more super quick thing. Will you be running R1 service? And if not, is it because of the bus shortage that you're dealing with elsewhere?
Right now, we're not planning to run R1 service, but we will be watching closely. We are and have been continuing to run the, if you recall, the E1 service from Blair into downtown, so that will continue. And one of the considerations was where we're at with the bus service right now, and the challenges we're facing on the bus side. So that definitely was a consideration. We do think that for most times of the day, the capacity on the line is there and will be sufficient. But we know those peak periods, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard on our customers, and we'll be watching closely. We'll make adjustments where we can, and we'll be pushing RTG to get us as many vehicles as possible.
Mr. Charter, do you know if there's cartridge available right now to be replaced? Like, are there delays and stuff that they need to wait until they can start fixing those trains that need to be changed?
No, they can start now. They do have a supply of vehicles. They do have a supply of cartridge bearing assembly here in Ottawa, because they are still ongoing, replacements on regular intervals for the other issue, right? So we know they have a supply here, but that's the details, all the details that we really need to get into now. So I want to see what the new maintenance processes are. I want to see how they're going to maintain and manage this going forward. But then it's, the supply chain and making sure there's sufficient numbers here to support our operation. So that's definitely a focus. But yes, they do have cartridge bearing assemblies here in Ottawa, and they've started the work already.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. That's all we have time for today. Ceci conclut le point de presse aujourd'hui. I'll just remind you all that we are going to continue to be sending updates, and we'll be in touch for future media availabilities on this topic. Merci.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Merci.
Thanks.